Yeah, now I started recording. Earlier session is being converted, I think, as I just restarted my machine, so you can check it. It is being converted now. So it will be divided into two sessions. Okay, anyway, now I started the recording. Now you can see that in our case, our null hypothesis was mu is equal to 100. So obviously our alternative hypothesis is like mu is not equal to 100. So yes, that was our first step. In the second step, we have chosen something called as level of significance, right? And level of significance is nothing but what? Alpha value. So I told you that level of significance in our case is 0.05 because we want to create such a model which is going to be 95% confident about the results, right? So if this is the case, there will be some skewness, some shaded region here, which is going to be our what you can say level of significance at alpha value. See, our alpha value is 0.05, right? That means this value is going to be 0.025, this one, and this one going to be 0.025. Now the third point I was trying to talk about was find the critical values. So critical values you are going to get from either z table or a t table, right? Now I will tell you why I have referred only z table here and why not t table, right? So what was our critical value? We got the critical value as, so for 95% confidence interval, the corresponding z value was 1.96. This is what we have seen till now. Now critical values, in short, it is what actually it is the thing called z value or t value. So if the population, see now when to make use of z table and when to make use of t table. If the population standard deviation is known, if population standard deviation, if it is known, then you always make use of Z test, and that is Z table. What am I trying to say is, if you are aware about population standard deviation, if this is known, then we always make use of Z table. That means we always need Z value. So in our case, we have been given standard deviation. Right. There is actually a problem statement which I will try to show it to you. So in that problem statement, this is given. Population standard deviation is given. And that's why we are making use of Z table. I'll be showing you that problem statement also. Okay. Now everything is closed. Actually, I will have to look at the location of that file. But anyway, I will just check it once this is once all these things are done. I will try to show you the problem statement also. So there was a simple problem statement which was like a numerical, right? So those kind of problems also you'll be able to see in your exams, right? So or otherwise I may write it down. There was something like, see, the problem statement was something like this. In short, let me write it down. The average IQ, this was given. Average IQ for the adult population, this is given to you. So average IQ for adult population is 100. Okay, with standard deviation, that is nothing but standard deviation we always denoted with standard deviation for population, we always denoted with sigma, and which is given as 50. So average IQ for adult population is 100 with standard deviation as 50, right? Now they are saying that a researcher believes this value has changed, right? A researcher believes that something like this was there. A researcher believes that this value is changed. This value is changed. Which value? Average IQ for adult population. Someone believes that this value is changed. And that's why that researcher decides to test the IQ of 75 random adults. Okay. So he decides to test the IQ of 75 random adults. The average IQ of sample is the average IQ of sample. Average IQ of sample, that is this one. Sample I am talking about. I already told you what is sample and what is population. Population is nothing but complete data set. Sample is nothing but the part of the data set. So average IQ of the sample now he has found out is 105. Okay. Now the question is there enough evidence to suggest that the average IQ has changed? Average IQ has changed. Is there enough evidence to suggest that the average IQ has changed? Right? That's why what are we doing is we are trying to assume that the average, that is mu, average of the population, that is this one, is 100. We are assuming that it is still 100. That is our null hypothesis. And that's why alternate hypothesis is what? It is changed. That means it is not equal to 100. That's why I have taken it like this. Okay, I hope everyone is able to understand this particular problem segment. In a short, I have written it actually. If you want, I will repeat it once again. See, something like this is given to you. The average IQ for the adult population is 100 with a standard deviation of 15. Now, the researcher believes that this value has changed because of some reason. He believes that this value has changed. That's why he has decided to test the IQ of 75 random adults. And the average IQ of this 75 random adults or the sample, he found out that it is 105. Now the question is there enough evidence to suggest the average IQ has changed or not? That's what we are trying to get with the help of this hypothesis test. Okay, so till now what we have done is this step is done, level of significance is done, finding out the critical values is also done. So in our case, the critical value we are saying that it is 1.96, that is Z value. And I already and why are we trying to make use of Z value only or Z table only? Because we have been given this particular thing, which is nothing but what? Population standard deviation. Standard deviation of the population is given. That's why I had chose to make use of Z table. That's the reason. Same thing actually happens with T table also. But if this is not have been, if for example this would not have been given to us, then I would have went for T table. This is how actually it works, right? So I hope till this point everyone is clear. Now the fourth point is we need to find out the test statistic. Something called as test statistic. We need to find out. Now, how to find out the test statistic? That is nothing but Z is equal to, so we write it like Z, X bar minus mu divided by sigma, that is standard deviation, divided by under root of n. What is n? N is nothing but sample size. N is what? Sample size. And what is the sample size in our case? It is 75. 75 random samples. So what I can do is I can directly go and put all the values. What is X bar actually? X bar is nothing but C. Mu is nothing but the average of population. That is complete data. What is X bar? X bar is nothing but the average of sample. This is what? Average of population. Average IQ of population. Average IQ of sample. So what is the average IQ of sample they are saying? Now it is 105. That is 75 people. IQ of 75 people, it is saying that now it is 105. IQ of 100 people, that is total population. What it was? What you can say? IQ for adult population. They have not given us the number how many of them they are there. Okay, so IQ of the adult population, they are saying that it is 100. That means what I can do is the value of this one is 100. That is 105 minus 100 divided by what is the sigma? Sigma is nothing but standard deviation which is given to us, and that is 15 divided by what is this n? And I told you it is sample size. N in our case is 75. Right? So just calculate this particular value, all of you. What will be this value? Z is equal to, I don't remember that answer. Just can you please calculate this value? Z is equal to, what is this? And just let me know what is the result you are getting. So it will be like minus 5, 5 divided by something like this.
2.88.
2.88. That means just consider as 2.89 for example, right? Approximately 2.89. So this is your test statistic, right? So in the fourth step, we found out test statistic. Now, and one more point, whatever we found out, this one, finding out the critical values. So what we got critical value as? We got critical value as 1.96. But if I just want to explain you what actually it is going to represent here in the data set. So critical values are going to represent, so see, critical values are going to represent these lines. These are called as critical values. Okay. So critical values, for example, I can say are the Z values that are going to separate the shaded area, that is this area at the tails, and this middle area. Critical values are the Z values that separate the shaded area at the tails and this area. Okay, those are called as critical values. Critical value in our case is 1.96. So obviously it will be minus 1.96 because if you are trying to take it as 0 here, so obviously instead of this is going to be negative side, this is going to be positive side. So here critical value is going to be plus 1.96. Okay, so in simple words, critical values are the Z values which are going to separate this shaded area at the tails and this middle area. And what do we want? We want 95% confidence, right? So that's why our alpha was 0.05. So I hope everyone is able to understand this critical value, right? Now what we got for our statistic, for our sample, what we got here? We got Z as 2.89. That is our test statistic is 2.89. Now how to make use of, or how to, what will be the fifth step? Draw the conclusion. Fifth step is going to be draw conclusion using this test statistic. Draw the conclusion using test statistic. So our test statistic now is Z is equal to 2.89. So in our test, which we perform, if the Z value, that is this, if the Z value for our sample, it is going to come in rejection area. Now what is rejection area? So this shaded area is called as rejection area. This one and this one. In our case, this is called as, this shaded area is actually called as rejection region or rejection area. So what I'm trying to tell you is in our test, that is this one, which we perform, if the Z value for our sample comes in the rejection area or rejection region, then the null hypothesis fails. That is, we reject null hypothesis. What is the Z statistics? What is the value of Z in our test statistic which we got here? 2.89. Now just try to understand where 2.89 is going to come. So if this is your critical value, 2.89 obviously is greater than 1.96. That means 2.89. If this is 1.96, 2.89 is going to come somewhere here, right? That means it is going to come in rejection area only. So as our Z value for the test which we perform, as it is going to come under rejection area, that means here we are going to reject null hypothesis. This is going to be rejected, right? So as 2.89 lies in rejection area, reject the null hypothesis and accept H1, that is alternative hypothesis. That means what? That means that yes, there is a change in the average IQ of the adult population. It is not similar to 100 right now. There is a change, and this is called as hypothesis testing. This is how we do it. We have this evidence. We have evidence actually. Is it clear, everyone? Hypothesis test. I have seen many people, they are generally confused about it. That's why I'm asking you. Are you making sense here? Is it making sense, everyone? If you have any question, you can ask. Anyone any doubt here? I know in between, actually, because of some problem, we lost the connection. Right? But still, if anyone is in doubt, if you want me to repeat anything, I am ready to repeat it. No problem at all. Okay. Okay, everyone is clear, I think. Now, if I go to that IPYNB file and to my notes, and if I read it now, you will be able to understand what is written there. Okay, I will have to open everything once again because I cannot open that particular IPv4 file directly here, right? I'm going to need Anaconda. At least I need Jupyter to open that particular file. So what we have seen is that hypothesis testing is definitely something it is something which is going to help us in advance, right? So with the help of that, definitely we can go, and once our model is created, and once we start getting some results from our model, definitely we can make use of this hypothesis testing, right? It generally hypothesis testing is going to be done before going to develop the model, because it is going to help us to get some clear idea about the population, about the samples also, right? And as I told you that, see here, why to take care about population, why to take care about sample only. So here, as we have noticed, let's say suppose if I have a very big data here, obviously here this is going to be your total population, this is going to be your total data set. Now one cannot go and one cannot directly start the operations on complete data set. Instead of that, what we do is we just try to concentrate on a single part or a small part of the total population, and this small part is called as sample. Okay, this whole thing is called as population, this small part is called as sample. Why we work with sample initially? Because obviously if you directly try to start with the population itself, it's going to take a lot of time. That's why what we do is we just take a small part, that is nothing but a sample, and with the help of that sample we just try to talk about the complete population. Obviously I'm not saying that it is going to be 100% accurate, but definitely it's going to save a lot of time. Instead of working on this much of big data, first of all we try to take a part of the complete data, and then based on that, by performing some operations on this small data, we try to talk about the complete data set there, right? So that's what is called a sampling, right? We do sampling. It's like suppose there are 100 students in a class. Now I want to tell that okay, there will be a class on Sunday. So me going to each one of those 100 students and then telling them that okay, there will be class on Sunday, it's not at all feasible. Instead of that, what I will do is, suppose let's say I know that there are groups in your class, right? There are 10 groups in your class, but I know that I know each student from one group. So 10 students I will pick randomly from those groups. From the complete population, I will just try to pick 10 students in such a way that one of them is going to be from a group, from some group. So definitely my job is actually reduced here. Instead of going to 100 of them, I will go to only 10. Those 10 people in turn will go to remaining 10 people in their group. So my job is reduced here. So that is nothing but sampling. So definitely sampling is going to save a lot of time, and that's what we are also trying to do here. Okay, so instead of directly going and directly applying something on complete data set, we do sampling. So that's what we also do in real time. Now you can see this particular file. Now let me go and let me try to show it to you. What is the next part in that? So we are trying to talk about hypothesis testing. That's what I have explained it to you. Okay, let me go to that particular title, that particular topic here. And now see, this is what we have seen. So what they are trying to talk about now. So how do we do this test that we have seen? We reject the null hypothesis. So yes, in our case, we have rejected the null hypothesis and thus believe the alternative hypothesis. That means in our example, we believe that yes, there is a change in the average IQ of the ideal population. So if the 95% confidence interval does not include zero, if 95% confidence interval does not include zero, that means in our case, I have shown it with the help of Z test. Now there is something called as the p-value represents the probability of the coefficient actually being zero. How? So see, p-value actually stands for a probability value. Now how we get p-value? This is one way, or otherwise we have direct method in Python, like summary, which is going to give us p-value. But try to understand, see, LM is my model, LM dot p-value is going to give me a p-value. So Ignore this p value. Try to concentrate on the p value of TV. So it is 1.46. Now what do you mean by this? If 95% confidence interval includes 0, p value of the coefficient will be greater than 0.05. If the 95% confidence interval does not include 0, the p value will be less than 0.05. Okay, thus a p value less than 0.05 is a way to decide whether there is any relationship between the feature in consideration and the response or not. A response is nothing but what? The output variable. Feature is nothing but what? Feature is nothing but the input variable. Again, using a 0.05 as the cutoff is just a convention. P value, it's not compulsory that you can make use of 0.05 value only to decide about the confidence interval. It's just a convention. So in this case, the p value of TV ads is way less than 0.05, which is 1.4673 e minus 42. So what is this value? If I want to show it to you, let's suppose, what is the meaning of that value? So I don't know whether this E is going to work here or not. Let me check. Okay, this E is nothing but just a representation. Okay, this value is going to be very, very less than 0.05. So as the P value for TV ad is way less than 0.05, and so we believe that there is a relationship between TV advertisements and sales. It's exactly the same thing. Either you go with the P value or you go with the hypothesis testing. Is one and the same thing. So as P value is very much less than 0.05, we believe that yes, there is a relationship. See, we already seen with the help of scatter plot also that there is a relationship between TV and cells. But we have some statistics also to decide about that particular relationship. So with this particular sentence, I hope everyone is clear that yeah, when you can say that there is a relationship between advertisements and TV advertisements and sales, if the P value is very much less than 0.05, and in our case, that is the case. How well does the model fit the data? So one of the most generic way to evaluate the fit of a linear model is by computing R squared, which we have already seen. R squared explains proportion of variance. Proportion of variance in the observed data with the model which the model explains, or the reduction in error over the null model. So we have seen that R square value should be as high as possible. Okay, the value of R squared lies between 0 and 1. A value of closer to 1 is better, and we have already seen that higher the value of R square, better the model is. But again, we should not only depend on R square value, because there is something called as adjusted R square also. We already seen that. What is the limitation of R square value, right? So many times you will see that if there are some features which you are going to add into your model, you will see that R square value is going to be increased. But it does not mean that that feature is going to contribute to the output value. Okay. So lm.r squared in our case is 61.18. Okay. So whether it's a good or bad, that all depends on the data set itself. So till now, whatever we have talked about, it was simple linear regression. Let's see a simple example of multiple linear regression. So simple linear regression was like y is equal to beta 0 plus beta 1x. But multiple linear regression is going to be y is equal to beta 0 plus beta 1x1 plus and so on beta and xn. In our case and in real time also, we never try to predict something only on one input variable. We always try to make use of multiple input variables. That is called as multiple linear regression. So in our case, what is the equation? Y is equal to beta 0 plus beta 1 into TV plus beta 2 into radio plus beta 3 into newspaper. All these are the variables. And let's use stats model to estimate these coefficients. Now what am I trying to do? Instead of only TV, I am trying to make use of TV, radio and newspaper as the input columns. So my input columns will be all these input features, and output column again is going to be cells. Again, I am trying to call the linear regression model. That linear regression method, I am trying to create object of that and trying to train the model with the help of fit method. And I am trying to calculate the intercept value here and coefficient value. So coefficient value for TV is this, coefficient value for radio is this, and coefficient value for newspaper is negative. Now, how do we interpret this? So, if we look at the coefficient for newspaper spends is negative. That is this one. It means that the money spent on newspaper advertisement is not contributing in a positive way to the sales. That means one should not spend more money on newspaper ads if he wants more sales. Definitely, you can go and you can spend money on TV advertisements and radio advertisements, but newspaper advertisements, actually the coefficient is negative. It is contributing in negative way, right? Now you can see that what am I doing? I am trying to add a stats models formula. We already seen this. Earlier I used only this one, sales opposite TV. Now I am using sales opposite TV plus radio plus newspaper from data. Dot fit I am using. So lm dot confidence underscore interval and lm dot summary is going to give a lot of things. What it is going to give? It is going to give R squared value. Now if you use TV, radio and newspaper as three input columns, three features, three independent variables, three labels, and sales is the output. It is saying that R squared value is 0.89. That means 89%. Your model is able to explain the data. Adjusted R square is again same. As there is no that much of difference between them, that means it is not overfitted. F statistic, we'll be talking about this maybe in later cases. Okay. Out of all this statistic, what we have seen till now is R square, adjusted R square, optimal least square. And we even talked about p value. Now, which p value to consider? So, p value for TV, radio, and newspaper you can look out. P value here you should look out. P value for TV is this. P value for radio is this, but P value for newspaper is negative. Okay. And what is Durbin-Watson coefficient? What is Q? What is Jack, beta, beta? These are nothing but again some of the coefficients, some of the statistics which we make use of for other algorithms. Actually, we'll be talking about this one maybe in I think SVM. Okay? We haven't talked about this, but for now the important point for you people is this one. Now what are we getting here? We are getting p value for TV as 0.043, which is way less than 0.05. Right? That means there is a relationship between TV and newspaper. So see, you can go and you can actually refer this particular sentence about the p values which we have read earlier. See this one. P value less than 0.05 is a way to decide whether there is a relationship between input feature and the output. But if you are getting negative value, that means it is actually affecting but in negative way. Let's see what are the interpretations from this one. So TV and radio have positive p values, whereas newspaper has negative one. Hence, we can reject the null hypothesis for TV and radio. What was the null hypothesis? Our null hypothesis was that there is a relationship. There is no relationship between TV and radio. There is no relationship between sales and TV. You can check it. Or null hypothesis. No relationship exists between TV advertisements and sales. This was our null hypothesis. That means we can reject that null hypothesis now. Okay. We fail to reject the null hypothesis for newspaper, that there is no relationship. But you can reject the null hypothesis for TV and cells and for radio and cells. Null hypothesis was that what it was? Null hypothesis was like there is no relationship between TV and cells, but you can see that there is a relationship. Again, the expenses on both TV and radio ads are positively associated with cells, whereas the expense on newspaper ad is negatively associated with the cells. The model has higher value of R squared than the previous model, which means that this model explains more variance and provides a better. Which was the previous model? Previous model was only based on TV. This model is based on TV, radio, and newspaper. That's why higher R squared. Feature selection. How do I decide which features have to be included in linear model? So you have p values for that. You have R squared values for that. They should be higher, and it should satisfy the condition. This should be satisfying the condition, and this should be higher. But again, it has been given that one should not only depend on R square value and only p value, because there are some drawbacks. Using a p-value cutoff of 0.05 means that adding 100 predictors to a model that are pure noise. That means some extra data. Still, 5 of them will be counted as significant. That means there can be some data sets where there will be some missing value. That's why one should not only depend on p-value. R squared value is susceptible to model overfitting. This we already talked about. That's why we make use of something called as adjusted R squared. Okay. Let's see what happens if you include only TV and radio in the model. So What am I doing? Optimal least square, sales opposite TV and radio. Now you can see that R square value is 0.89, right? And if you include TV, radio and newspaper, R squared value is 0.8971, 0.8972. Even though I am making use of newspaper column, but R squared value is slightly increased. But we have seen that newspaper is actually contributing in negative way to the sales. But still the R squared value is increased. That's a drawback of R squared value, which we already talked about, right? That is what is actually given here. And that's why what do we do is we use something called as adjusted R squared, right? And as compared to this one, the better approach will be something called as cross validation, which is mentioned in the syllabus. Cross validation provides a more reliable way to choose which of the created model will best generalize, as it better estimates out of sample data. We will see one example for that. An advantage is that the cross validation method can be applied to any machine learning model, and scikit-learn package provides extensive functionality for that. Cross validation we haven't yet talked about. We will be talking about that. Okay. So this is all about model confidence, confidence interval, p-values, hypothesis testing, and all that. Now, coming to a simple example, or coming to concept of how to handle categorical predictors with two categories. Now, what do you understand by categorical predictors, categorical values? Let's suppose there is a column like gender. Now, gender column has two values, male and female. Let's suppose there is a column as affected by diabetes, yes or no. So yes or no, true or false, male, female. These are categorical data. So obviously it's in the form of a string, but you know that in case of machine learning, the data should always be in numerical format if you want to create the model. So here what are we trying to see is, we are trying to see that what if the data is not in the numerical format, what if there are two categories. So what am I trying to do is, I'm just trying to create a data like this. See, till the sales data is already with us. I'm just trying to add a new column called as scale. Now, how I am trying to add it? I am trying to make use of a random method here, which we have seen in case of NumPy also. np.random.rand. I hope you people remember that. Now, again, those people who solve the assignments, they will easily understand whatever is happening here. So I'm just trying to create some random values of the length of data, that is 200. See, I'm not showing it to you step by step now, because I hope everyone has done the assignments. So I will hope that everyone knows what's happening here. Okay, because again otherwise it will take a lot of time. That is the reason why we actually discuss those packages earlier. And again, this is not a difficult thing actually. So np.random.rand length of data. So I'm just trying to create 200 random values here, and I'm trying to assign out of those random values, I'm trying to assign some random values to this particular variable, which are greater than 0.5. So ultimately what I want to do is, I just want to add one new column called as scale, and in that scale I want these values large and small, because we want to understand how to handle categorical predictors with two categories. So yes, I have a categorical predictor now called as scale, which has two categories, large and small. So in this case what we can do is, as this is not numerical data, but we know that for machine learning algorithms we need numerical data, we can directly convert it into numerical data. So you can assume it as small as 0 and large as 1. That's it, right? That's what is actually given here. For scikit-learn library, all data must be represented numerically. If the feature only has two categories, we can simply create a dummy variable that represents the categories as combination of the binary value. So what I am doing is, now just to convert that particular data into numbers, I am trying to assign 0 to small and 1 to large. Now you can say that this scale column is now converted like this, is large. I am naming it as is large. Now it is in the terms of 0 and 1s. So as simple as that. If there are two categories, no problem. You can simply assign 0 and 1. Right. And yes, again, what I have done is, now in my case, these are the input features. This is my output feature. Again, I am trying to train the model with the help of linear regression method. And I am trying to find out the value of the coefficient for TV, radio, newspaper, and is large. So I am saying that I can see that these are the previous values and this is the new value. So how do we interpret the coefficient for is large? For given TV, radio, newspaper, and expenditure, TV, radio, newspaper ad expenditure, if the average sales increase by 57.42 widgets, if the average sale increase by 57.42 widgets, it's considered as large market. We are able to interpret this with the help of this particular way. And what if the zero encoding is reversed? That means what? That means here we are using 1 for large and small for 0 for small. You could have done it like this also. 1 for small and 0 for large. That also is possible. No problem at all. That's what is actually talking about. Still the value of the coefficient shall be same. The only difference being the sign. It will be negative number instead of positive. That is the only thing. Otherwise, the same thing is going to happen. Now, the next thing is how to handle categorical variables with more than 2 categories. In earlier case, there were the data we created in which there was only 2 categories, large and small. But what if there is a categorical column in which we have more than 2 categories? So that's what am I trying to do here? Again, here also I am trying to create some data set with the help of NumPy package equal to the length of data, that is 200 number of records I am trying to create. And what am I doing is I am trying to assign the values to some variable called as mask underscore sub1. Which values I am trying to assign? The values which are greater than this and less than this. I am trying it to assign to this one. I hope you people remember. Okay, RAND generates random values from uniform distribution. That means the values which are in between 0 and 1. That means all the positive values. Again, assignments. Okay. And so the values which are satisfying this condition, I am trying it to assign it to this particular variable. The values which satisfy this particular condition, I am trying to assign it to this particular variable. And I am trying to add a new column called as targeted geography. So to this targeted geography, I am trying to assign rural. That means every value is going to be rural initially. But what am I doing? Again, this is indexing. Again, assignments are going to come into picture here. So data.loc mask underscore sub1 in targeted geography column is equal to sub1. If this condition is satisfied for this value, instead of rural, assign the value of sub1. Okay, if this condition is satisfied for this particular value, instead of rural, assign this value again. So I mean to say that I am just trying to create a data where I want to have a targeted geography added. See, till this point it is exactly similar to earlier. Till is large. I am trying to add this particular column where I have 3 categories now: rural, urban, and suburban. Now here I cannot make use of 0 or 1. Even I cannot make use of 0, 1 or 2. If I make use of 0 as rural, urban as 1 and suburban as 2, what will happen is it means that rural is less than urban, which is less than suburban. We do not want that. Right? And that's why we make use of something called as dummy variable trap. We make use of something called as dummy variable trap. Now what is that? So we, in case of pandas, again assignments. In assignments also there is a one question I think, or otherwise you can go through the notes which I have shared. Okay, so area underscore dummy. So pd.get underscore dummies. What is this going to do? It is going to convert every value into zeros and ones. Now, as I'm not executing, but still let me tell you what's going to happen with the help of this dummies method. This dummies method, what it is going to do is, see, what is the value here? So this particular targeted geography will actually be converted into 3 columns. Just a minute. Okay. So what's going to happen is, I told targeted geography is going to be converted into 3 columns. So it will be like targeted geography underscore rural, targeted geography underscore urban, and targeted geography underscore suburban. Now, what for the first record, for the first row, what is the output here? Rural. So if I am saying rural, so this rural is going to be 1, others are 0. Urban, if I am saying urban is going to be 1, others are 0. Again rural, 1 0 0. Again urban, 0 1 0. Suburban, 0 0 1. This is going to happen for all the 200 number of records. It is going to happen because of this one. pd.dummies is going to do that. And how are we making sure? So we are adding a prefix before all these column names. And after that, what am I doing is, see, if you can see carefully, No need to use all the three columns. Anyway, we are going to remove this column because this one column and these three columns are actually giving the same information. But what we will be doing is, instead of using all the three columns, let's suppose I removed this particular column. Now what am I going to get is urban 0, suburban 0. If urban is 0 and suburban is 0, that means that rural is 1. If this is 1 0, that means urban is 1. 0 0 again, that means rural is 1. So either you use these three columns or only two columns is one and the same thing. So what we'll be doing is we'll be deleting one column. We'll be dropping any one column out of these three columns after conversion, and that is actually called as dummy variable trap. Okay. So see what we're doing. Dummies. Again, this is indexing, simple indexing. Finally, what am I getting a C? Suburban and urban, because rural is actually removed. So if suburban is 0 and urban is 0, that means the output is rural only. See, you cannot pass this particular column as input to your algorithm. Okay, that's why we converted this particular data into numbers. So what does the encoding say? So encoding is saying the same thing. If this is 0, this is 0, that means answer, that means the value is rural. If this 0, this is 1, that means the values are 1, and so on. You could have removed even suburban also. Then it would have been urban here, suburban, rural here in this case instead of suburban. Any two columns you could have taken. See, suburban is 0, urban is 0. That means the value is rural. Suburban is 1, urban is 0. That means the value is suburban. Suburban is 0, urban is 1. That means the value is urban. See, do not worry about this particular data. It's this data is like, if you want to take the meaning of this one, it means that where the company is actually trying to advertise the product, whether in the rural region or the urban region or the suburban region. That is the meaning of this. My point is to make you understand how do we handle a categorical data where there are more than two categories. That's what my point is. That's why I have given you this particular example. Okay, and many times what will happen is once you get this particular node, then only people start understanding whatever I have actually explained. So it's like I try to add each and everything in these nodes, whatever is needed even for the next algorithms also. Okay, so dummy variable trap I have already explained to you. Now what am I trying to do is I am trying to create feature columns, and in these columns, see what am I adding? TV, radio, newspaper is large. So I have removed categorical data, and now see target geography suburban and target geography urban. Now each one of them is numeric. I have used is large. I did not make use of scale now because scale is not needed. Same information is actually given by is large and which is in numeric. I am not using target geography column because same information is given by these two columns. Again, combination of them, they are also in numeric. So as we needed our input data in numeric format, that's why we have done all those things till now. And now I am assigning it to features. My output is cells. My input is features. Again, calling linear regression, training the model. And now see, I got all the coefficients for TV, radio, newspaper is large, target geography suburban, target geography urban. So this is what we have got, and we are just trying to interpret all of them. Right? This is what the interpretation is. And what is multi-collinearity concept actually? Multi-collinearity concept in simple words, if I want to tell you, see, we have seen that output column should be dependent on independent column. Output column should be dependent on input column. But if the case is like one input column itself is dependent on another input column, then that is called as multi-collinearity. Now, what are the ways to detect the multi-collinearity? One of the ways is to make use of heat map, which we have seen in case of Seaborn or assignments. Now, in case of Seaborn or correlation, if the value of correlation is less than minus 0.09 or greater than 0.09, then there is a multi-collinearity. Okay, what is multi-collinearity? If there is a relationship between independent features, then that is called as multi-collinearity. Let me give you, instead of reading this, let me give a simple example. See this example. If you can read it here, if you really want to understand what's a multi-collinearity and why to care about multi-collinearity actually, let me tell you why to care about multi-collinearity. If there is a multi-collinearity present in your data set and if you are trying to train the model from that particular data set, your model is going to become overfitted model. And what is overfitted model? I already told you. It will give good results at the time of training, but bad results at the time of real-time testing. So if you want to understand what is multi-collinearity, just take this particular example. If you have, see, salary is equal to A into years of experience plus B into age plus C. So where A and B are coefficients and C is a constant. So salary is our output column and years of experience and age are input column. Now what am I saying? What is multicollinearity? If there is a relationship between input columns itself, that is called as multicollinearity. Now in our case, what are the input features? What are the input columns? What are the input variables? What are the independent variables? Years of experience and age. But if you talk about, if you see that age and years of experience, they have a relationship between them. Because age is equal to years of experience plus some constant D, where D is a constant. The age when the person started the job. The age when the person started the job. For example, when the person started the job, at that time the age of that person was 25 years. And total years of experience he has is suppose 10 years. Can you not calculate his current age? That is 35. That means there is a relationship between age and years of experience, which are our input features. So there should not be, it should not happen that one independent feature is dependent on another independent feature. And we know that as age increases, years of experience is going to increase. That means they are related to each other. And if this is the case, that means there is multi-collinearity, right? So our linear regression equation, which was only supposed to have one linear relation, that is between input variable and output variable, now has more than one relation between input and output, and another relation between input. So more than one relation in an equation, hence the name multi-collinearity. Now, why should we care about multi-collinearity? I told you that. If you do not take care about that, your model is going to become overfitted model. And that's what we do not want. How can you detect multi-collinearity? There are different ways. First way is to use correlation matrix. So this one is called as heat map, which makes use of correlation. We have already seen this one in C1. So this plot shows the extent of correlation between independent variables. For example, x-axis, y-axis, you are able to see all the independent variables, input features. Generally, the correlation greater than 0.9 or less than minus 0.9 is to be avoided. See, this is nothing but a standard convention. In our case, you can see that there is no value greater than 0.9 and less than minus 0.9. That means there is no correlation. But this is just an example. Some another example. I am just trying to tell you that how to detect the correlation. This is one way. Another way is something called as variance inflation factor, VIF. VIF is equal to 1 upon 1 minus r squared. So see how to detect if there is a correlation between the columns or not. So what are we going to do is we are going to find out the VIF value for each and every column in our data set. If the VIF value is greater than 5, it means there is a correlation. Instead of 10, just consider it as 5. How to find out the VIF value? This is the formula. But how to find it out in Python, that we'll be talking about in the example itself, while implementation, while we'll start implementing our project or application. Okay, so remember, if the VIF value is greater than 5, that means yes, there is a correlation. It should be less than 5. What are the remedies to remove the multicollinearity? The first one is do nothing. Do not do anything. If that is not that much severe, they can be ignored. Second is remove one variable. That means in our case, age and experience is there, so remove one of them. Third one is combine the correlate variables. Like in our case, you can combine age and experience and you can come up with some other column like seniority level. By having some linear combination between age and experience, you can come up with a seniority level column. So instead of 2, there will be one column only. And the last way is to make use of something called as PCA, principal component analysis. So many people think that PCA is an algorithm which is going to give you a model, but actually it does not give you a model. What it is actually used for is, it is actually used to remove the multicollinearity. This is actually used as a pre-processing algorithm. So generally what I do is I generally go and I try to talk about PCA separately. But again, this is not mentioned in your syllabus. I think it is not there. That's why maybe we might not be discussing it. If we get time, we will discuss that, no problem. Okay. So yes, this is what about multicollinearity. Bias variance trade-off, I already talked about that. Okay. And this is the formula. Total error is equal to bias square plus variance plus irreducible error. So if you really want to have a low total error, bias and variance should be as minimum as possible, or there should be low bias and low variance. That's the reason. And you can see the relationship between bias, variance, and error. Why I say that bias and variance should be low? Because if you look at the total error, that is this black curve, it is minimum here. But when it is minimum, when this bias is minimum, and when this variance is minimum, that is this point. That's why low bias and low variance is always preferred, because we are going to get low error in that case. That's what is actually shown graphically here. Okay. And yes, then last point is nothing but regularization, which comes under cross validation actually. Here there will be three types of regularization which we will be talking about: lasso, ridge, and elastic. And then finally, we will be starting with the implementation of an application, where I'll be showing you how to create a model with the help of linear regression. That's the only part which is remaining. And then finally, I'll be showing you a project with the help of Jupyter, what we can say, PyCharm. Okay, we'll be directly talking about a project with the help of PyCharm. Okay, so once you get this file, I will hope you will go through this, try to read it, everything. Every time you read this particular file, you will notice that every time we'll be understanding something. That is for sure. So repetition and practice is very, very necessary if you really want to understand something. Okay, this is what I wanted to talk about today. Right? Maybe for today we will stop here itself, and in the next session we will try to start with the regularization. Okay, so okay, just a minute. Some people are trying to write down something. Okay, no problem. Oh. So yes, before ending this meeting, I just want to tell you: is it possible for you people to have a session on maybe Sunday, Saturday or Sunday? Because yesterday I was there at university, so I talked with madam and sir. Right, so maybe I think we have time till March only, right? But we are lagging behind, so we need to complete the things. So maybe I think I will require some extra sessions also. So just let me know, is it possible for you people to have session on Sunday or maybe on Saturday?
So for 1 hour or 2 hours?
What is it possible for you people to for 2 hours? Whether it's for 1 hour, again, no problem.
So on Saturday you can take for 1 hour in the morning.
In the morning. Okay, then just let me know the time.
Okay, sir, we will discuss everyone, then we'll let you know.
Sure, no problem. Yeah. Okay, guys, then we will stop here and we will meet in the next session. Just send your numbers and names in the chat box.